The silent response. The stars trembled when the Calaxy arrived. Their warships emerged from the void between galaxies, thousands of vessels that blotted out the light of distant suns. For centuries, the Calaxy Empire had conquered neighboring galaxies with methodical precision. Now they had set their sights on the Milky Way. The invasion began at the edges of Coalition space. Outpost Zeta-9, a monitoring station orbiting a forgotten moon, detected the first wave. The energy signatures were unprecedented, massive and hungry. Before they could send a second transmission, the station vanished in a flash of purple light. All that remained was the automated distress beacon echoing across the stars. Within 72 hours, 3 border systems fell. The Calaxy communication played on every frequency, in every language. We are the Calaxy Empire. Surrender is your only salvation. Resistance will be met with extinction. The Galactic Coalition, an alliance of 17 spacefaring species, called an emergency session in their floating citadel above the neutral world of Centauri Prime. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Grand Chamber, their faces marked by fear. Ambassador Tilok of the Nelvari spoke first, his crystalline skin reflecting the chamber's dim light. The Calaxy fleet has destroyed our defensive platforms in the Rigel sector. Nothing remains. His voice cracked. We lost contact with 2 colony worlds. The Dravik military outpost in the Ta Ceti system has fallen, added General Mokar, her scaled skin bristling with anger. 3,000 of our finest warriors, gone in minutes. Chancellor Xilin of the Council rose slowly, silencing the chorus of terrified voices. And what of Earth? Has humanity responded to our calls for aid? An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. No word, answered Ambassador Tilok. No ships deployed. No communications. It's as if they've gone silent. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. For decades, humanity had been the Coalition's shield, impulsive and unpredictable, but undeniably effective in crisis. The humans had defeated the hive mind of Betelgeuse, repelled the Void Walkers, and negotiated peace with the Silicon consciousness. Yet now, when faced with the greatest threat in recorded history, Earth was quiet. Perhaps they've abandoned us, suggested a representative from the Orvian Collective. Perhaps they've made their own deal with the Calaxy. Or perhaps, said a voice from the shadows, they're waiting. All eyes turned to Vorix, the ancient Cronus observer. His species rarely spoke at council meetings, preferring to watch and record. Humans don't behave like other species. They don't show their strength until necessary. On the bridge of the inevitable Dominion, the flagship of the Calaxy Armada, Supreme Commander Dreskar watched the tactical display with narrowed eyes. The Coalition forces were scattered, disorganized, exactly as expected. But something was missing. Where are the humans? He asked, his 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. Fleet Captain Mevran approached cautiously. No sign of their military vessels, Supreme Commander. Their colonies appear normal. No unusual movements or communications detected. Dreskar's mandibles clicked in irritation. I don't like it. Humans are never this quiet. During our conquest of the Andromeda Arm, the intelligence reports always mentioned the humans' tendency to fight first. Perhaps they recognize the futility of resistance, suggested Mevran. No, Dreskar said firmly. Send probe ships to monitor Earth's system directly. I want to know what they're planning. 3 days later, as the Calaxy fleet prepared to assault the mineral-rich worlds of the Procyon system, the probe ships reported back. All 7 had found nothing unusual in Earth's vicinity. No fleet movements, no defensive preparations, nothing but routine transport ships and orbital stations. Dreskar should have been pleased. Instead, his unease grew stronger. The Coalition forces mounted a desperate defense at Procyon. Ships from 5 different species formed a blockade around the primary habitable world. The Calaxy fleet approached with overwhelming force, their weapons charged and ready. Then something unexpected happened. 3 Calaxy destroyers at the rear of the formation simply vanished. No explosions, no debris. They simply ceased to exist. Before the Galaxy Command could process this information, 5 more ships lost power, drifting helplessly in space. "What is happening?" Dreskar demanded, slamming his fist on the tactical display. "Unknown, Supreme Commander," replied his tactical officer, frantically working controls. "We're detecting no enemy vessels, no energy weapons." A message cut through the confusion, broadcasting on all Galaxy frequencies. The voice was calm, measured, human. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of Earth Special Operations Command. Your ships are being neutralized by our phase shift technology. We recommend immediate withdrawal from Coalition space." On Centauri Prime, the Council watched in amazement as the Galaxy attack faltered. Ambassador Sarah Keegan of Earth had finally arrived, striding into the chamber with unhurried confidence. "Forgive our delayed response," she said, addressing the Council without ceremony. "We needed time to deploy our countermeasures." "What countermeasures?" demanded T-Lock. "We've seen no Earth ships in the battle zone." Ambassador Keegan smiled. "That's rather the point, isn't it? While the Coalition had prepared conventional defenses, humanity had spent years developing something entirely different. After centuries of warfare, humans had concluded that meeting force with force was inefficient. Instead, they had poured resources into stealth technology, quantum disruption fields, and nano-infiltration systems. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean on Earth, in a facility unknown even to most humans, General Marcus West monitored Operation Shadow Strike. Around him, technicians controlled thousands of microscopic drones, each the size of a dust particle, that had been secretly attached to Galaxy ships during their approach through the void. "Activate Group 7, West ordered. Target their communication relays." Across space, Galaxy warships suddenly found themselves blind and mute, unable to coordinate their attacks or receive orders. The perfect invasion force became a collection of isolated vessels, each vulnerable in its solitude. On the inevitable Dominion, Supreme Commander Dreskar was beginning to understand. "The humans," he hissed. "They weren't hiding. They were hunting." The Galaxy had expected a frontal assault, ships against ships, weapons against weapons. Instead, humanity had turned space itself into a weapon. Quantum mines materialized inside Galaxy engine rooms. Communication systems broadcasted conflicting orders. Life support systems cycled unpredictably. "Our second wave has been delayed," reported Fleet Captain Mevran, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Something is disrupting their jump coordinates." Dreskar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "How are they doing this? Where are their ships?" A holographic image appeared before him, projected from an unknown source. It showed Admiral Chen, her expression severe. "Supreme Commander Dreskar," she said, "you've invaded our space with the expectation of an easy victory. You've brought ships, soldiers, and conventional weapons. What you fail to understand is that humanity stopped fighting conventional wars centuries ago." In the Coalition Council chamber, Ambassador Keegan explained humanity's strategy. "We've studied the Galaxy for years. They conquered the Andromeda Arm through brute force. They expect their enemies to do the same. So we decided not to play their game." Chancellor Xilin leaned forward. "You knew they were coming. Why didn't you warn us? Would you have believed the threat was real?" Keegan asked. "Would you have accepted our unconventional response? Or would you have demanded we commit our fleet to a direct confrontation, exactly what the Galaxy wanted?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "Phase 2 begins now," Keegan said, checking her neural interface. "I suggest you watch carefully." Across the battlefield, invisible human stealth ships finally revealed themselves, not through visual confirmation, but through action. They didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they deployed reality anchors, devices that prevented Galaxy ships from accessing their phase shift technology, trapping them in normal space. Suddenly vulnerable, the Galaxy found themselves under attack from all sides. Coalition forces, emboldened by humanity's success, pressed their advantage. The invasion force that had seemed unstoppable began to fragment. On the inevitable Dominion, Supreme Commander Dreskar made a decision. Signal the retreat. We will withdraw to Sector 9 and regroup. But before the order could be transmitted, all systems on the flagship shut down simultaneously. Emergency power flickered on, providing minimal life support, but nothing else. The mighty vessel drifted in space, helpless as a newborn. A single human appeared on the bridge, not physically, but as a holographic projection so perfect it seemed solid. "Supreme Commander," said Admiral Chen, "we need to talk about surrender terms." Dreskar's mandibles clattered in fury. "How did you get aboard my ship?" "We were never not aboard your ship," Chen replied. "From the moment you entered our galaxy, we've been with you, watching, learning, waiting." In that moment, Dreskar realized the true scope of his miscalculation. The Galaxy had conquered species that fought as they did, with ships and soldiers and declarations of war. They had never encountered a species that made silence their weapon, patience their armor, and invisibility their strength. The humans hadn't been inactive. They had been invisible. And now, the hunter had become the hunted. As news of the Galaxy retreat spread through Coalition space, species that had feared extinction dared to hope again. On Centaurid Prime, Ambassador Keegan addressed the Council one final time before departing. "We didn't abandon you," she said. "We just fight differently than you expected. Remember that the next time you think humanity has gone quiet, the first phase of the war had ended." But as the Coalition celebrated, General West and Admiral Chen knew the truth. The Galaxy would adapt. They would return. And when they did, humanity would need more than stealth and surprise. They would need Project Nemesis, the weapon humanity had prayed it would never have to use. The hunter becomes the hunted. Supreme Commander Dreskar paced the emergency bridge of the reserve command ship, Unrelenting Conquest. The inevitable Dominion had been lost, not destroyed, but worse, captured intact by the humans for study. 37 other capital ships were unaccounted for, and nearly 200 smaller vessels had been disabled or destroyed in the first wave of the invasion. "Impossible," he muttered, mandibles clicking rapidly. "No species has ever repelled our first assault." Fleet Captain Mevran approached cautiously. "The High Council has sent a communication, Supreme Commander. They demand an explanation for our setback." Dreskar's eyes narrowed. "Tell them we encountered unexpected resistance. Tell them we are adapting our strategy. Tell them victory is still assured." But as he studied the tactical displays, doubt crept into his mind like poison. The humans weren't fighting according to any military doctrine the Galaxy had encountered in 12 galaxies of conquest. They struck without warning, without ships, sometimes without weapons. They were everywhere and nowhere. "We must change our approach," Dreskar announced to his war council. "The humans have shown themselves to be dishonorable. They refuse to meet us in open combat, so we will give them no choice." His new strategy was brutal but simple. Target civilian populations. The Galaxy would strike Earth's colonies with such overwhelming force that humanity would be forced to respond with their conventional fleet. Then, in open battle, the superior numbers and firepower of the Galaxy would prevail. 3 days later, the colony world of New Eden received the first blow. 12 Galaxy warships appeared in orbit, weapons charged. But before they could fire, something impossible happened. The planet disappeared. Not the people, not the cities. The entire planet simply vanished from space, leaving the Galaxy ships firing into emptiness. On the bridge of the Unrelenting Conquest, the sensor's operator stared at his readings in disbelief. "Supreme Commander, New Eden is gone. Our scanners detect nothing. No debris, no energy signature. It's as if it never existed." Before Dreskar could process this information, reports flooded in from across the front. 3 more human colony worlds had similarly vanished when Galaxy ships approached. It made no sense. No species possessed the technology to move entire planets. In the Coalition Council chamber, Ambassador Keegan explained the reality to the astonished representatives. "They're not gone," she said calmly. "They were never there." Chancellor Xylan's tentacles writhed in confusion. "Explain yourself, Ambassador. These colonies have existed for decades. We have traded with them." Keegan nodded. "What you traded with were real outposts, with real humans, but they weren't on planets." She activated a holographic display, showing what appeared to be a normal Earth colony. Cities, farms, oceans, atmosphere. Then the image zoomed out, revealing that the planet was actually an enormous hollowed-out asteroid, its interior projected with perfect simulations of planetary surfaces. After the Centauri War 200 years ago, humanity realized that fixed planetary surfaces were strategic vulnerabilities. Keegan explained. "So we began converting asteroids into mobile habitats, completely self-sufficient, capable of controlled movement, and equipped with quantum displacement technology." "You moved your colonies?" asked Tilak incredulously. "We made them movable from the start," Keegan corrected. "Every human planet in the outer systems can relocate when threatened. The Calaxy are attacking mirages, firing at the afterimages of worlds that are now light years away." The council chamber erupted in astonished discussion. No other species had conceived of such a strategy. The engineering challenges alone were thought insurmountable. Yet humanity had quietly achieved it, all while maintaining the illusion of conventional planetary settlements. On the unrelenting conquest, Supreme Commander Dreskar faced a growing crisis. The Calaxy fleet, designed for overwhelming force, was being picked apart by an enemy they couldn't find or fight. Worse, his own officers were beginning to question his leadership. "The humans are cowards," he raged. "They refuse to face us directly." An aide approached with a communication tablet. "Supreme Commander, we're receiving a direct transmission from Earth itself." The holographic display activated, showing a human woman in a simple gray uniform, Admiral Helena Chen. "Supreme Commander Dreskar," she said without preamble, "your strategy has failed. Your fleet is scattered. Your supply lines are compromised. I am offering you one chance to withdraw from this galaxy with your remaining forces intact." Dreskar's mandibles clicked furiously. "You dare dictate terms to the Calaxy Empire? We have conquered 12 galaxies. We have never known defeat." "Then this will be an educational experience for you," Chen replied coldly. "You have 24 hours to begin your withdrawal. After that, we stop being merciful." The transmission ended, leaving Dreskar shaking with rage. "Prepare all remaining ships," he ordered. "We will strike at Earth itself. Not a colony, not an outpost, their homeworld. Let's see if they've figured out how to move that as well." But even as he gave the order, the tactical officer interrupted. "Supreme Commander, we're detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the fleet. Our engineers report foreign objects in critical systems, objects that weren't there an hour ago." Across the Calaxy fleet, tiny machines were awakening, billions of them, each smaller than a blood cell. They had been dormant, waiting for activation. Now they began systematically disassembling non-essential systems from within, converting the materials into more of themselves. Humanity's nano-saboteurs had been planted months before the Calaxy even entered the galaxy, carried by automated probes that had infiltrated their fleet during their approach through intergalactic space. The humans hadn't just prepared for this war. They had started fighting it before the Calaxy even arrived. As his fleet crumbled around him, Dreskar made a final, desperate decision. "Activate the Void Spear," he commanded. "Target Earth's sun." The Void Spear was the Calaxy's ultimate weapon, a device capable of triggering premature stellar collapse. It had ended resistance in 3 previous galaxies with a single demonstration. No civilization would risk their home star to continue fighting. "It will take 6 hours to charge the device," the weapons officer reported, "and we'll need to move closer to the target star." "Do it," Dreskar ordered, "All remaining ships will escort the unrelenting conquest to the Sol system." What remained of the Galaxy fleet, still over 400 warships, formed a protective sphere around the command ship as it approached Earth's solar system. For the first time since the invasion began, the humans would be forced to engage directly or watch their homeworld die. In the hidden command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, General Marcus West received the intelligence with grim satisfaction. "They've taken the bait," he told Admiral Chen. "The Galaxy fleet is converging on Sol, just as we predicted." Chen nodded, her expression severe. "And Project Nemesis, ready for deployment. The Coalition Council has been informed of our intentions. They've granted emergency authorization." Chen closed her eyes briefly. "I had hoped we wouldn't need to use it." "The Galaxy have left us no choice," West replied. "They've utilized stellar collapse weapons in 3 galaxies before ours. We cannot allow them that opportunity here." As the Galaxy fleet entered the outer reaches of the solar system, they encountered no resistance. No human ships challenged them. No defensive platforms fired upon them. It was as if Earth had been abandoned. On the unrelenting conquest, Supreme Commander Dreskar grew increasingly uneasy. "This is too easy," he muttered. "Where are their defenses?" The fleet passed Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn, meeting no opposition. The Void Spear charged steadily, its power levels approaching the threshold needed to trigger solar collapse. As they approached Jupiter, Dreskar's unease turned to dread. Something was wrong. It felt like walking into an ambush, but scans showed nothing. No ships, no weapons platforms, nothing but empty space. Then, as the fleet passed Jupiter's orbit, everything changed. Jupiter itself began to move. Not the planet, something hiding behind it. Something massive. The tactical display went wild as sensors finally detected what had been concealed in Jupiter's shadow. Not a ship, not a station, but something else entirely, a construct of impossible proportions. "By the eternal void," whispered Fleet Captain Mevran. "What is that?" The answer came in the form of a transmission, broadcast on all frequencies. Admiral Chen's voice filled the command bridge. "Supreme Commander Dreskar, allow me to introduce you to Project Nemesis. For 3 centuries, humanity has been constructing it in secret, hoping we would never need to activate it. The construct emerged fully from behind Jupiter, and the Galaxy fleet finally saw it clearly. A lattice of dark metal surrounding a blazing core of energy, stretching thousands of kilometers in every direction. It wasn't a ship or a weapon in any conventional sense. It was something far worse. The quantum unmaker," Chen continued, "capable of selectively rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within a targeted region of space. Right now, that region includes your entire fleet." Dreskar's mandibles went still with shock. Impossible. No species could achieve such technology. "You're partly right," Chen agreed. "No single species could. Project Nemesis represents the combined knowledge of every intelligent species the Galaxy drove to extinction in those 12 galaxies you conquered. We found their scattered survivors, their hidden archives, their desperate final transmissions. And we learned from them all. Throughout the Galaxy fleet, systems began failing in ways that defied comprehension. Matter changed its properties. Energy refused to flow along expected paths. The laws of physics themselves seemed to twist and distort. The Void Spear, designed to collapse stars, flickered and died as its underlying principles were rewritten. Galaxy ships began to drift, their propulsion systems rendered useless by localized changes to the very nature of reality. On the unrelenting conquest, Supreme Commander Dreskar watched helplessly as his mighty fleet was neutralized not by force, but by a fundamental reordering of what was possible. The humans hadn't just outfought the Galaxy, they had changed the rules of existence itself. "You have one final choice," Admiral Chen's voice announced. "Complete, unconditional surrender, or we continue this demonstration with increasing intensity." For the first time, In the 12,000-year history of the Galaxy Empire, a supreme commander spoke the words, "We surrender." In the aftermath, as coalition peacekeeping forces took custody of the defeated Galaxy fleet, Ambassador Keegan addressed the Council one final time. "Humanity didn't develop the quantum unmaker because we wanted to," she explained. "We built it because we understood something fundamental about the universe. True power isn't found in the ability to destroy. It's found in the ability to change the context in which conflict occurs." Chancellor Xilin regarded her with new respect. "Your species has saved this galaxy. But I confess, Ambassador, you have also frightened us. What's to prevent humans from using such technology against the coalition itself?" Keegan smiled sadly. "The same thing that has always restrained us, the knowledge that just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Project Nemesis will be disassembled now that the threat has passed. Its components scattered, its knowledge fragmented among 100 worlds." "You would give up such power?" asked Tilak incredulously. "Power isn't something you possess," Keegan replied. "It's something you exercise with restraint." As the coalition digested this lesson, former Supreme Commander Dreskar sat in his containment cell, still struggling to understand how the mighty Galaxy had been defeated. A human guard passed by, and Dreskar couldn't help but ask, "How? How did your species accomplish this?" The guard paused, considering the question. "Simple," he said finally. "You conquered 12 galaxies through force, collecting enemies with every victory. We explored one galaxy through cooperation, collecting friends with every encounter. You learned how to destroy. We learned how to build." He gestured to the stars visible through the cell's small window. "Up there, you saw resources to be taken. We saw teachers with lessons to share. That's why you never stood a chance." As the guard walked away, Dreskar realized the human was right. The Galaxy had conquered worlds, but humanity had done something far more powerful. They had conquered fear itself. And in doing so, they had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous and most magnificent species the galaxy had ever known. Not because they were the strongest or the most numerous, but because when threatened, they didn't just fight back. They reimagined what fighting meant. They changed the game. They altered reality itself rather than accept defeat. And somehow, despite this godlike power, they chose peace.